You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. Welcome to the show, David.
Hi, Jim.
What should we do with our precious metals right now? I'm wondering, will the price skyrocket from here? Can it go any lower? You were mentioning something a little scary for the people who are trying to make money producing precious metals out of their mines.
Well, all four of the precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, and palladium, are trading at, or in some cases, well below the cost of production. Just as an example, the Morgan Report did a series of reports on all-in sustaining costs, AISC, which looks at everything that you can find that is put into the mix of how much it costs to produce an ounce of silver. And what they found out that there's many of the primary silver producers, it's costing them anywhere from $22 to $28 an ounce for that silver. And here we have silver trading below $18. So they're not making any money. And the people that are trading dollars, even so, that are not primary producers, such as copper and other base metal producers, they're selling their silver at a loss, but it's being picked up somewhere else along the line. So platinum and palladium, the same story. It's selling pretty much below cost for everybody.
Is this a good time to invest in it, with it being low in price?
Well, if you're out there looking for good value, it is. And the problem is people think that if they don't pick the bottom, that they've made a mistake, or you have to wait until they see where the bottom is. By the time that's obvious on the charts and all the pundits, the bottom is well behind us and prices are much higher. So as you and I have talked about many times over the last few years on these programs, the best way to establish a position or add to it is to buy in tranches, to buy perhaps on a dollar cost averaging basis. You have a certain amount of money to spend each month or every couple months, and you buy whatever ounces you can purchase at that time. Or you buy in thirds or something like this, rather than just going all in and saying, oh, this must be the bottom. And then if you're off by $1 or $2 in the case of silver, then you feel like you've made a big mistake. But this is a way to keep your emotions under control and buy in a way that's rational. As Stu Thompson likes to say, buy smaller than is rational at any given time.
Now, off the subject of metals, just briefly, we're told that when the markets take a dive, folks look for security, and they still believe the American dollar is the place for that security. Is gold also a place for that security?
It is, and it's been that way for 5,000 years. It comes and goes out in and out of favor, but the reality is no one else has a claim on that money except the person that holds it, and that's different than any other financial instrument out there. When you look at the amount of derivatives that have been created in the trillions of dollars, the leveraging that even the biggest banks have, anywhere from 20 to 100 times their own capitalization, not to mention the debt levels of countries around the world, the public and private debt, you have to realize that at some point there's going to be a realignment, and that realignment is going to favor precious metals over paper promises.
A lot of people have predicted the fall of the U.S. dollar. It seems to me that if people always run to it when there's trouble, it's still going to be the world currency.
It's been very strong lately, but it's strong in relationship to other currencies. And if you look at the inverted pyramid that Trace Mayer has done, I think it was, I'm trying to remember the person that was a Federal Reserve, one of the Federal District Reserve some years ago that actually created it, where you turn the pyramid upside down, and so you have all the paper assets at the top, at the wide base, which is at the top, and it moves down to the bottom, which is a very narrow point, and that narrow point is gold and silver. And it's interesting that the different levels of whether it be real estate or derivatives or bonds or bills, all of these are above that. And as people lose confidence in those, they move down to the next level. And finally you get down to the level that's just above gold and silver. And Jim, what do you think that level is?
I have no idea.
It's the dollar.
Oh.
And so based upon this triangle that has been inverted and shown to be what people do when they flee from assets that they don't have confidence in, they're now moving into the asset that they still hold confidence in, the dollar. And when they finally realize just how fragile that currency is, and they move out of that, they will literally run to gold, as Trace Mayer likes to say. And David Morgan has done a lot of work on this as well, and he has been discussing just lately how this is shaping up where people are moving into the dollar in a big way. And when they start losing confidence, when they see just how fragile that situation is, and the dollar starts losing its value again, as inevitably it will, in relationship to other currencies, there's going to be more than a small rude awakening on the part of the public.
The Chinese government has been urging its citizens and, of course, itself to purchase all the gold they can. Are they still bringing in all the gold they can?
They are, and it's very difficult to determine the exact amount now because until earlier this year, you could go look at what was coming in through Hong Kong because that was the primary portal for bringing gold into China other than a certain amount of smuggling. And now the Chinese have made it not only easy but legal to bring it into other centers such as Beijing and Shanghai. So a lot of this comes in a way that is legal to them, but also is below the radar screen of people in the West that are trying to figure out just how much gold is coming in. So it's a safe bet that the amount of gold that's coming in is still as much as it was last year. It's just not tabulated as easily as we saw last year.
One of my probably stupid questions is, are the Chinese hoarding gold because they have no confidence they're going to be repaid for the American debt they hold?
That's a very smart question, Jim, and beyond the fact of whether or not they're going to get repaid, they'll probably get repaid, but how much will those currency pieces that they get back have in value in terms of the relationship to what they do today or a couple of years ago? They hold several $1 trillion in U.S. debt, and even a very small movement out of that into some other medium, such as gold, is a lot of money. And so if you or I were in that position, we would be doing the same thing. We would be looking for a way to diversify our holdings. And with the increased tensions that we're seeing between the West and China and Russia, it makes a lot of sense from their viewpoint to not be dependent on holding trillions of dollars in paper dollars that can lose their value substantially overnight. Plus, there's a lot of talk out there about them at some point having a gold-backed currency, which would be a very powerful motivator for them from a financial standpoint. So they're collecting gold hand over fist, not only officially through their central bank, but unofficially by encouraging 1 billion Chinese to do the same.
We'll have more with David Smith right after this.
More and more people are looking to the Internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on The Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
Welcome back. We're speaking with David Smith, Senior Analyst for The Morgan Report. David, I've run into a few people now who have inherited coin collections, and they don't know what to do with them. Should they just take it down to that cash for gold place or have them appraised to see if these are collector coins that are worth a whole lot more than their face value?
The cash for gold would be a terrible thing to do because you're not going to get anything approaching what the value is, whether they're bullion coins or whether they're numismatic coins that might have value far in excess of the amount of gold or silver content in it. So the thing I would recommend people do is to find a legitimate coin dealer or a legitimate bullion dealer and go to them and say, you can probably for a fee have them look at what you have and give you at least an initial idea of what you've got. And if they're not competent to, and if they're honest, enough to give you the value or tell you what the value is of the numismatic coins, then they would probably provide you with the name of someone who's established in the business and is legitimate to go and take a look at what they have. Because essentially the bullion coins are going to be worth on any given day where the metal is trading right now in a spot basis, a little below or a little above, usually at spot. But the other coins could have a great deal of value. They might be worth 10 or 20 times what the value of the metal is in them.
I mean, I just look at the example of the Canadian government. They said to help pay off the deficit, they were going to sell off the last of Canada's official gold coins that were issued back in I think, 1913, 1914, because once the First World War started, they didn't want people hoarding gold, so the government stopped producing gold coins. But if they just sell them for the weight of the coin, sure, they'll come away with a few $1 million, but as collectors are screaming in protest saying you're going to melt down part of the country's history.
Well, and the thing is, when you're dealing with governments, they don't necessarily care whether they make a profit or not. So that's a whole different thing, and governments operate to their own metrics oftentimes and don't pay much attention to what you and I might think about it.
Yeah, and then they wonder why we don't respect some of their decisions.
Just one example of many.
David, thank you very much for chatting with us.
You bet, Jim. It's been great talking with you today.
My guest has been David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. You can find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Comments about the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.